I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we don't have any prior meetings minutes tonight, so we have anybody signed up for public comment? Mr. Flores? Do you want to speak? The microphone's there.
Hello. My name is James Flores. First of all, I'm very proud to see the diversity in this group.
You have to speak a little louder, James.
Louder?
Mike's
Hello?
on. There you go. It's on.
Hello. I'm very proud to see the diversity in this group. This group represents the real America, and some people are not happy with that. Well, I want to be honest with you. Last night, I cannot sleep because I was beat very badly. Because that budget is me. The budget didn't pass. I feel like they killed me. Because the people vote no, not because the budget was too high or too low. People vote no because they're playing politics. Members in this board that vote no, playing politics. If you want to play politics, you should be in D.C., not in a small town. Let me tell you before, and to the record straight, I never give up. I can be defeated, but not destroyed, like Hemingway say. I'm coming back for the next budget. And if you think you're going to play with James Flores in November, that's going to be a different ball game. Because they think that November they're going to clean the board of education. No. Because let me tell you my dream team for November. For the board of education, I got my dream team. Starting with my sister Galusi. I'm going to campaign for my sister Medica Lucy very hard. My sister Katina Caban. My blood sister Katina Caban. My sister Lynn I. And Cassandra. That are my dream team. They're running for office, and that the people are going to endorse. Because I'm going to do what is best. Those people, they're not politicians. I never ever vote for professional politicians. Those people care for our community. And to be honest, gonna be a referendum during snow day. Imagine we had to vote for the next budget. Snow day. I don't know what's gonna happen. Imagine we're gonna have a referendum and we have to cancel because snow. And by law, we had to vote either in the end of November or beginning of January. And like I said before, something happened here. We got almost 800 Windham public school staff, 3,000 kids, that is almost 1,000 parents. So it's a lot of communication between, I don't know, I don't want to point finger at nobody. How come we cannot get people out to vote? Don't blame myself, don't blame my mother. I vote, my mother vote. I don't want to blame nobody. But something happened. When I see the book, all those people get money to do communication director, community engaged. What happened with those people? Let me tell you, I don't want to be tough because I promised my sister with Patricia Garcia they're going to be nice. But let me say something very tough word. If I will be in charge of a company and somebody don't deliver it, going to be out the door. I don't know. There's no reason to have only 600 votes in June and 600 votes in September. Oh, if I wouldn't be that chair Garcia, somebody be out the door. I don't mean this board member. You got people on payroll getting paid to communicate with the community. And the job is not getting there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak? Okay, if that's it. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report on the SBAC and SAT achievement data.
I think I'm going to go over there.
Okay.
And we don't have Mr. Neil Weathers with me tonight, our Director of Accountability, so I will,
So you're on your own.
yeah, I know, ask Tracy Lambert, Tracy. Dr.
You can ask me, but I have no idea what you're going to say, so good luck with that.
Dr.
That projector is right in blocking the screen.
Yeah, Dr. Youngberg to join me, and so we're going to tag team here. So tonight I want to present to you the student achievement data, or can you hear me? Is it working?
I think you turned it off. Buzz on. Now it's on.
Okay. So tonight I want to share with you the student achievement data, or SBAC data, and our SAT data. Recently, about a week and a half ago, the State Department of Education released the result of the SBAC assessment data, released student score, student achievement for the entire state of Connecticut. So we want to share with you how we're doing, and how we're doing in comparison to the state of Connecticut, but how we're doing in comparison to district in the Alliance District. The data will show you tonight that Windham Public School is moving in the right direction. The data will show you tonight that Windham Public School is closing the achievement gap by 1/3 in ELA and by 1/4 in math. The data will show you tonight that Windham Public School is moving upward, and that although we start very low years ago, you will see that Windham Public School, about 5 years, more students are learning, more students are reading proficiency, more students are meeting level 3 and 4 of the SBAC. That is the level of proficiency. And we'll talk also about the SAT. So we're very proud of that. Then I will tell you how does this happen, how it happened in public school, and then where we fit with the other district. So we, Dr. Youngberg and I went to same time here. So you want to start, Tracy?
Okay, so this first slide is a combination of our grades 3 to 8. It has levels 3 and 4, which on SBAC means that the students have met grade level expectations or exceeded grade level expectations. So the CT obviously stands for Connecticut. The WPS is a combination, Windham Public Schools, and the CBS is Charles Barrow STEM Academy. So you can look, I think you have the presentation in front of you, so you can refer to it, but we're moving in the right direction. Oops, wrong way, sorry. There we go.
I think this chart is one that I really like for you to observe. And you can see here where the state, how the state is growing for level 3 and 4, and how Windham Public School is growing for level 3 and 4. As you can see, in 2014, 2015, we are the red bar right there. We're like half of the state. And you can see 2018, 2019, how we're growing at a faster rate than the state of Connecticut.
Here we have a combination of the scores for grades 3 to 5, and along the side of the chart are all of your schools, so you can look across the chart and see where each school has been going. The highlighted sections on the chart indicate the years that they had the highest performance levels, but you can notice we've been making gains across the board in ELA. Obviously, we always want to continue to make gains to close that gap, but we're definitely moving.
So we're not where we want to be, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But go back to that slide again. So if you take a look at where Connecticut started, 55.7, and they're 50.7. So Connecticut had remained flat. Windham Public School is moving in all its different schools. So again, that shows here with Connecticut, and the blue bar is Connecticut, is remaining flat. Windham Public School is closing that achievement gap at the state level.
Here we have grades 6 through 8 combined, so obviously that only represents 2 schools in our district, Barrows and the middle school. So we have the Connecticut average against the Windham Public Schools combined average, and then each of the schools broken out.
Again, every chart that every grade level, every combination of grade level show that we're starting very low. As you can see here again, we're starting not even at where the state was at that particular time. But again, what is important is to look at the growth. That we are moving, we are growing. Every year we're making progress, we're moving in the right direction.
This is a list of all the grade levels over the course of the years we're looking at. It would take a long time to go through each section, but if you have any specific questions. Yeah. And I also should point out, we should both acknowledge that these are numbers, and obviously we're very happy about third grade scores, but these scores represent a lot of hard work in our buildings. We're incredibly proud of the principals and the teachers and the students and the families that made these numbers happen. Okay, so here we have combined scores in math in grades 3 to 8. Again, Connecticut, Windham Public Schools, and Charles Barrows. And we have
Windham is the red chart again, the red bar you can see there when we started, where we are compared to the state of Connecticut. There is an increase in the state of Connecticut, you can see there. But Windham Public School, again, is growing, closing that achievement gap in math to get to the level of the state.
Here's combined scores for grades 3 to 5 in all of the schools listed down the side. Again, looking to move in the right direction at a pace faster than the state's growing. So that's our goal always, to close that gap. We've got to improve at a quicker than the state's growing.
Again, so you mentioned that we have to grow faster than the state, and every chart showed that we are growing faster than the state in order to close the achievement gap. That's the only way to close the achievement gap, is to grow faster than the state. And we're very pleased to see in math 3 to 5, we're growing faster than the state. Again, other school districts are growing, but take a look at where the state is located and how the state is growing, and we are growing much faster than the state.
It's just combined grades 6 to 8 again in math, looking at, again, Charles Barrows and the Windham Middle School and the combined averages of both schools against the state average. I don't know if we have any questions or... Yep. Chart again. One more indication, same thing. So here's the results of the SAT in both ELA and math. And again, the state reports it out in levels, and we're looking for level 3 or 4. Level 3 means they met the expectation or the benchmark that the state has set up, or they've exceeded that. So we obviously want our numbers to be much higher than they are, but we're making gains. We're making growth, particularly in math on the SAT. We had a big jump from last year's scores.
Was the other PowerPoint? So definitely we are not pleased with these numbers, with these scores. We want to see more students achieving level 3 and 4, so we relentless to move forward. But the question is, how does this happen? How do we get to improve scores on a yearly basis? And I will talk about the collaboration and the hard work of teachers, administrators, teachers, parents, students. But it's important to note that they need to have the resources, they need to have the instructional system in place, the curriculum system in place, the assessment system, and everyone working together, and that's why this happened. So the question is, how do we continue to make sure that this can continue in the district and it can move? But I also want to point out to you that in the state of Connecticut, there are 7, 8 DOR. And what in the state of Connecticut, school district are grouped based on the DOR, district reference group. And the reference group of the district are done based on 4 categories: income, education, location, enrollment. Which is the other one, Tracy? It's income, family structure, income, and education. We are DORB I, and that's the lowest DORB. We are in the DORB with Bridgeport, New Haven, Hartford, New London, and New Britain. Right. DORB A is like a Greenwich and New Canaan and things like that. However, we are not satisfied being with DORB I. We want to outperform. We want to move forward. So I want to show you tonight. These are the 33 Alliance districts in the state of Connecticut. 5 years ago, Windham Public School was in the 20s, performing at the 20. This is not a comparison with DORB I or DORB B or DORB C. This is just a comparison of the district that are Alliance. In the Alliance district, you have DORB H, G, and I. In the DORB I, you have, again, New London, New Britain, Bridgeport, New Haven, etc. We were in the bottom. We're in the bottom years ago. Today in ELA, we are number 3. We're number 3. We're paced by Vernon, that is DORB G, and by Meriden, that is DORB H. And we are DORB I, and we are number 3. So this is to show you the growth that we are making, that we are performing like a DORB H or DORB G in ELA. Of course, we're not performing like New Canaan or Greenwich, but we are moving up as we perform the different DORB. Can we show the other one? In math? In math, it's the same thing. We are number 7 in math based on the growth. And here we're performing with Winchester, that is DORB G, Meriden, DORB H, Nagata, DORB G, Burnham is a G, West Haven is an H, and I believe this is Putnam, that is a G. So Windham Public School is an I. So if you take a look how we started with the same score that Bridgeport Public School has. Where's Bridgeport? Somewhere aside a while ago. It's here. Waterbury, Bridgeport. We were in that same category with those same scores. And Hartford. We are moving up and we are performing with those other districts. Now, this is hard work. And in order to continue that work, we need to continue with the instructional system, with the curriculum system, with the leadership of the principal, the central office administration, and hard work and collaboration. So just want to give you that brief overview of one of the improvements and one of the progresses that we're making in Windham Public School. Of course, the other things that we're other improvement, other progress, but tonight is just to share with you the SBAC data and SAT data that was recently released by the State Department of Education. Any questions? Ms. Lambert?
Dr. Garcia, can you forward those 2 slides to us tomorrow or something like that?
I'll put it in the
I
packet.
can't read that from here.
Yeah, it's very
my
hard.
best
Yeah,
day,
I will
so.
put that in the packet for you on Friday. Okay?
And then, do we have data on where we rank with the SATs?
We haven't done that one yet. We get that one for you. Okay? I don't know if we'll get that for Friday, but I will get that one for
Okay,
you.
thank you.
But in the SAT, we are still in the same DERG with Bridgeport
Yeah,
and
our
others.
DERG doesn't change no matter what
Right, that
level we're
doesn't
looking
change.
at. I
Yeah,
understand that.
but I will try to get the one for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yumber.
The SAT data is a little trickier in that we require all the students to take it, but many of those students are not really interested in going to college. And what I'd like to do is see if we could find some way of extracting scores for those students who have some interest in post-secondary education, because I expect that they might be doing better than the students who took the test because they were told they had to take the test and don't have any motivation for using the test for post-high school. It seems to me that if the test isn't going to do anything for you, you have little interest in worrying about whether you're getting the correct answers.
Well, with the average on these tests, you're not getting into UConn. You can't get into our state
Well,
university.
with the average, but that's what I mean. Something like 40% of our students actually go into higher education, and yet we're making all of them take the test. So
We don't have a choice on that.
We
The
don't have a
state
choice.
requires
I
that.
know,
Yeah.
I know. But what I'd like to do is see if you could find a way to split the data a little bit to see whether the college-bound student. I'd like to see the scores of the students that actually are interested, or even if all they do is say they indicate whether they're interested in college, just because I think it would look a lot different. I'm not a big fan of SBAC. SBAC has never been adequately validated. It's mostly a marketing tool, but it looks like from the data that most of our gains occurred between 2014 and 2015. It's encouraging that we have continued to improve every year. But the biggest improvement was the first year, 2014 to 15.
Yeah.
And the years since then, now that may be an artifact of SBAC,
No, that
because SBAC did some funny things between 15 and 16, as I recall.
No,
But
that year was the year that we implemented the curriculum maps and the pacing guides and the scope and
yes, I
sequence.
know, that's been the thing that's the biggest responsibility for the jump.
So we implemented that and we refined it over the years. So 2 things that are important in order to improve student achievement is what you teach and how you teach it. So what you teach, we have that, I will say, we focus on that.
Microphone
Oh.
over, so.
As a 2 important aspect to improving student achievement and success is what you teach and how you teach it. And so we have focused at the beginning. We needed to have the structure in place, the resources in place. The curriculum was something that we needed. We continue to work now, since that time, we continue to work on how we teach. And that's building the capacity of teachers in the classroom to teach those concepts and those skills in the curriculum.
Yeah, well, the other thing that's encouraging is the ELA scores for the 3rd grade, which may be impacted by that the ARC reading program that you introduced, which seems to have increased the enthusiasm of the students for reading. And I hope that starts to show through year by year as those students get older. But we still have we've got a substantial jump to make from the mid-30s to the mid-50s.
We have a lot of work to do.
And doing it at the rate of 1 or 2% a year is going to take a long time. So we need to find some other way to make another one of those big jumps.
It's still a lot of work to be done, but I'm very optimistic because we're moving in the right direction. And so and optimistic that, we are performing like Derb G, and that's
That's very encouraging.
that's very encouraging, right? And so I want to congratulate the teachers and the administrators and the parents and the students. This is really a result of collaboration and hard work also, and teamwork. And not only the teachers, but every single personnel that we have in the school, the paras, the custodians, the tutors, every single one. This is really a team effort.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on that report? Okay, so the next item on the agenda is a discussion on possible action regarding the Windham High School renovation. So,
You have Mr. Callahan here, the chair of the building committee, and his team, Mr. Roach and Mr. Collier. Mr.
nice to see you again,
Mr.
sir.
Mr. Scott Spellman and his team that will give you an update about the high school renovation project.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to do just a very brief overview, and then the construction team and design team have a short presentation that shows the proposed changes that have been made to the plan since we met in August with this group. You all may recall when we met in August that we presented a budget for a project that was the budget cost estimate is about $124 million. It was clear to us at that time, and the Board of Ed made it clear that we needed to adjust and get that number lower. After our meeting with you, we also met with the state of Connecticut. They also made it very clear that the budget and the scope of the project was higher than that they were willing to support. So after the meeting with the state and after the meeting with the Board of Education, the design team and the construction team, using a typical phrase, went back to the drafting boards, worked with the building committee to make a number of changes to the project. And tonight our goal is to present those changes and hopefully get your endorsement. We have a scheduled meeting with the state of Connecticut for October 15th. Our plan at that meeting is to present the updated plans and revisions. And again, like our last meeting, one of our objectives is to get a sense from the state of Connecticut what the reimbursement amounts would be. If we have a project with a reasonable cost from our perspective and is something that we can support and we get the state reimbursement amount, then we'll be in a position to come back to the community and move forward. So before I reveal or turn it over, I would like to give the Board of Education the benefit of a very brief summary of the direction that the building committee has given to the design and construction team throughout the last couple of months. It might help the Board of Ed and hopefully the community understand the broad goals and really the purpose of the building committee, and that's to provide guardrails and guidance to our consultants so they have a sense of what the community is looking for, but also would be willing to support. So just very briefly, our first priority and first direction to the team was to make sure that all three programs fit in this building. So as you probably all recall, not only do we have in this plan the high school, but we have the early childhood center as well as the superintendent's administrative offices. And we were successful in including those three programs. It should go without saying, but we continue to remind the team that we wanted a safe and efficient use of the facility after the renovation, during the renovation, but also after. And again, I think we've been successful in that. It was imperative that the team present a plan that met the educational specification and, just as important, met the state's requirements for renovate like new. This project, the state imposes a significant amount of constraints on renovation projects. Their objective is to make sure that when you renovate a building, it lasts for a number of years. And items included in that are things like code compliance, ADA access to not only the building but the fields. It should be considered a modern teaching facility with comfortable work environments, comfortable learning environments, appropriate levels of ventilation and lighting, as well as the appropriate technologies, wireless and computers and appropriate furniture. The other renovate like new requirement is that the facility will extend its life at least 20 years, and that's makes a lot of sense to me as an engineer, and it should make sense to the community. We are making a significant investment, and the state is making an investment. They want to make sure that this facility will last for another 20 years. And again, the design and construction team have been able to meet those two criteria, the ed specs and the state renovate like new requirements. All throughout the process, we insisted that the design team keep the cost in line with the budget and to maximize the reimbursement rate. And the team has done a pretty good job of making sure things were reimbursable when possible. And then the other thing that the state, not this most recent meeting, but the previous meeting, made it clear to us that they wanted the athletic facilities, both inside the building and in the fields, to be included in the project. Initially, the project did not include, or initially the ed spec didn't include the athletic programs, and the ed spec has been updated, and we have been able to include the athletic programs in the plan. So we've been successful with those first 5 items. The other direction we gave the building team was to limit the demolition and major reconfiguration. Some school districts actually, even though they're renovating the building, they move the cafeteria across the campus to another end and they put the auditorium. And we made it clear to the building team that we were not interested in major changes. I know during the interview process, one team presented a very nice, elegant new entrance down by the gymnasium in that sort of subterranean courtyard, but it would have involved, it made a lot of sense, but it would have involved moving the cafeteria down there and a significant amount of expense. While something like that was interesting and enticing, we made it clear to the team, let's be sensible. This is not completely changing the position of the program elements. And again, the team has done a very good job of that. We had, from an energy standpoint, set goals for low, long-term life cycle cost. We haven't completely satisfied our objectives, but we've made good progress in terms of energy conservation. The last 3 things that we gave direction to the design team, we have been less successful, although I think practical. We had asked, to the extent possible, that the pool, the large gym and the auxiliary gym, the media center, the cafeteria, and the auditorium essentially stay in their configuration. And with the exception of the pool, which we will be talking about again tonight, we've been able to keep those elements in the program. And the architect will talk about some of the changes relative to the pool. So the next item that we had given the design team essentially a direction not to add any additions to the building. It was already a fairly large building. We were trying to fully utilize the space that was here. And initially, as you may recall, at our August meeting, we had approximately 19,000 square feet of addition. A couple of stair towers, some for the early childhood, some for the administrative offices. And both at the request of the Board of Ed and the state, we sent the team back to the drawing boards, and Bob will present tonight a new plan that significantly reduces the amount of square footage for additions. We've essentially got new additions down to no more than 7,000 square feet. And again, as an engineer, the changes that they've made, I think, make a lot of sense in terms of the objectives that we had established. And then the last objective was that the building be LEED Gold certified and that the project be completed with a PLA. And we're still working on both of those issues. and I'm not sure those will be included, but as we move through the project, we will endeavor to include those, but keep you informed as we get closer to making a decision. One thing I didn't mention, I should, under the safety and functional performance, and it in many ways drives the layout of the plan, and you'll see that when Bob presents, is one important criterion was to keep the early childhood student population separate from the high school population, and that was one of the criterion that we have been able to satisfy, but it's in many ways what's driving the need for a small addition. So just keep that in mind as we go forward. So we had a good meeting with the state. We got good feedback. They basically said to us, you come back, are clear with what your needs are, and we'll work very closely with you to help you get those needs satisfied. So I was very encouraged by the meeting. In summary, last time we were here, we were talking about a overall project cost of $124 million. Tonight, the plan that we're going to present to you, we are now down to the referendum amount of $112 million. The team, through changes to the program, which we're going to ask you to endorse, but also refining the cost estimates and doing a better job of rearranging and making and doing value engineering. They've identified about $8 million of construction savings, and we've reevaluated the soft cost. So we are really in a position where I believe we have a good plan. It'll satisfy the state, the objectives in the ed spec. I think it's a project that will result in a much better physical environment for teaching, and I'm at a position tonight where we're hoping the Board of Ed would agree. We would ask that you give us guidance, if not endorsement, of the changes that we're making. And certainly feel free to ask myself or the team questions. So Bob and the other folks will come up and do the presentation on the technical side. Thank you.
Good evening. Again, my name is Bob Roach with Fryer Architecture. When we came before you last time, this was one of the plans that we had showed you. This is the main floor plan where we were showing an addition on the building for the Board of Ed, an addition at the back of the building for early childhood, and an addition here at the front for the Board of Ed on the first floor and for the high school on the second floor, as well as a small stair tower and elevator. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to show you the new plans and talk about some of the changes that we have made along the way. As Mike mentioned, our charge is to ensure the programmatic needs of the ed spec are met, to ensure that we're giving you right-sized spaces and overall right-sized facility for your needs, and controlling costs through efficient design. So with these revised plan changes, we need to reduce the amount of proposed additions to the building was the main thing, because that's a big cost driver. So in order to do that, we had to find space within the existing building footprint, and we needed to make some big moves to reduce the scope and have an impact on the budget and the program. So Mr. Pellman's going to hand out copies of the plans. Starting on the ground floor, and we're just trying to keep things simple, so you'll see the high school areas are an orange color, and if it's a darker orange color, that signifies an addition as opposed to a renovation. Board of Ed is a blue color, and early childhood is a red color. So one of the biggest moves we made after meeting with the administration and the staff, the athletic department, the facilities department, was to propose to get rid of the pool. And instead of having the natatorium, to revise that space and make it the new auxiliary gymnasium. We talked a lot with Mr. Risley about this and everyone else, and they thought, you know, the pool, it doesn't get the use that it would in other programs in the building get, and you would have the added benefit of saving on operating costs and repairs and heating and things in the future by not having the natatorium. So we're proposing to fill in the pool and make that the new auxiliary gymnasium. That allows us to use the auxiliary gymnasium for program space. Previously, we had an addition on the building, and if you'll remember, in the basement area of that addition that were for the first floor, we had storage space for Board of Ed and the high school, as well as mechanical space. Those we're proposing to put in the first floor of the auxiliary gym. We're going to put a floor in there so we can have more program space on the second level as well. So 4,500 square feet of footprint, we're getting 9,000 square feet of program, which helps us to pull back on the previous additions. As Mike mentioned previously, in the last plan additions, we're 16,400 square feet, and with this new plan, we're just over 7,200 square feet. So we've reduced the proposed additions by 56%. Here on the main level with the new plan, previously we had an addition in this area for Board of Ed. So we've taken that away and we're consolidating Board of Ed in the same area. We're moving one program across the hall, which is the IT department, which also works within the building itself. So it would make sense that they don't absolutely need to be within the Board of Ed suite. This darker color indicates where we're infilling the building, where you have those two niches in the front of the building. We're infilling this one on both floors. High school space in the orange. Here at the place where the auxiliary gym is, we're adding a floor in this area, and we're adding classroom space on the main level. This was something that came up time and again with meeting with the staff, talking about program, is the high school needs to have more of a presence on the first floor, just can't all be upstairs. So here we've got digital media production lab and 3 classrooms in this area, as well as new toilet facilities so the kids don't have to walk all the way down towards the main office to support them. Some of the other big moves on the first floor, which have helped us by, in addition to taking over the auxiliary gym, we are proposing to right size the auditorium. So we are keeping enough seats in here that could hold 2 full grades at one time, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. And in the back where we had the distance learning classrooms with the foldable partitions that don't always work so great, we're making those hard-walled rooms. We're going to put band and the piano lab back in this area because they need to have a presence around the stage. The whole music department is going to be right in this general area. The stage, as we had previously done, is also being used as a classroom during the day, so you can have choir up on the platform itself. Also with the auditorium, since we're getting rid of the control room we had at the back, we're going to create a control platform right accessible off the main level before the seats tear down at the back of the seating area. This will have enough space. It'll be a regular platform, so you have 3 desks and all the equipment set up. And you'd also have space in here where it can be a teaching lab. You can have the students from digital media production and other areas there running the shows, and you have enough space to have a teacher and students who aren't actively participating learning and taking part in that. Previously we had the band, some of the band spaces right in this area. We were proposing to put them in the media center and move the media center upstairs. By accommodating all these needs in and around the auditorium, we're able to keep the existing media center in place and renovate it in place. This will save us construction costs with phasing, and it'll also be able to act as swing space during the process as well. That's something we're going to be looking at. So that was a big saver, and by not putting that upstairs, that freed us up to get some better spaces up on the second floor. So those are the main moves inside the building. We're still showing early childhood is in the back. It's safe and it's separate. They've got their own identity and entrance, as is everyone. So early childhood will still come in here where Board of Ed entrance is now. The high school will come in the front here, and the Board of Ed will have their own identifiable entrance here. There's parking to support all those facilities. There will be wayfinding as well, so you can, once you come into the site, there'll be signage. You'll see an entrance. They'll each have their own identity. But with the plans and looking at the site plans, we've reduced the amount of parking that we had originally proposed. So we're right-sizing the parking. It'll be enough to accommodate major events at night if you have something in the gymnasium, the auditorium, but we're not going to add paving where we don't need to. Also, we had previously proposed a canopy at the front entrance. We had an allowance in the budget for that of $1 million. We're cutting that back to $350,000. We're still going to give you something nice. You're not going to drive by the high school and have it look the same after we're all done. It's going to have a brand new presence, and it's something that's going to be seen and felt, and it will give a good identity at the front of the building. And then some of the other moves as well, in talking with the design team, is looking at what we're doing mechanically. Downs was good and proposed some revisions to the mechanical system we're proposing, whereas we can reduce the amount of ductwork in the classrooms and have cassette units and still have them work efficiently. Also reducing the level of some of the electrical scope, but we're still going to get all of the AV Teldata needs. You're still going to have 21st century classrooms and teaching spaces. And also reduction in some of the premium glazing we originally had in our design documents. We talked about that, so we found some other areas, and also some of the finishes, reducing the level of the finishes as we go forward into the design. So with that,
Bob,
yes.
before you turn the page, can you talk about where the additions are?
Yes. So again, the darker colored areas indicate an addition as opposed to the lighter color, which is a renovation. So again, on the first floor, we're infilling at the front here for the Board of Ed. And there's a small addition on the back for early childhood where they have their gross motor rooms. These will exit out onto the rear. In this area, we're going to have their playscape and play areas, which are well defended. We're going to have these fenced off, and students will be able to come directly out from inside the building, have access to the outside. So that's another addition. We have a stair tower here. Previously, we had an elevator. When we were moving the media center up to the second floor, we had provided an elevator, so at nighttime events, we have people come straight up and close off that area of the building. We can get rid of the elevator. We're still keeping the stair tower, but we've saved some costs there with adding a second elevator. We're going to renovate and put a new elevator in the location of the existing one, however.
We didn't have a choice on the gross motor skills addition. NIAC accreditation required that we had a
We
minimum
looked
amount
at
of
some
space.
options. We had looked at, okay, well, what if we didn't do this addition here and we kind of move things around? It's like when you have a long balloon, you squeeze one end and it all pushes down to the other end, and it kind of spilled over into this auxiliary gym area, and it wasn't quite meeting the intent of the program and the needs of the program. So then we went back and did some reconfigurations here to make things work, and so we are keeping that one small addition there.
I got a quick question.
That, we reviewed these in depth with the administration, but that also affected 3 classroom spaces in the high school.
Moving everything
The
down.
option 2 didn't pursue.
Yes. We were able to, in going with this option 1, we in our classroom count, you'll see in one of on the next page, the Ed Spec requested 25 classrooms for the high school. We in our previous plan we had 27. When we looked at that other option of changing things on the first floor for early childhood and not having the additions, by moving things around, we fell short of the programmatic needs. We're at 24 classrooms. So in doing so, we went with the option we're showing you now, and we're still with 2 classrooms greater than the Ed Spec. And then on the upper floor, this is all high school. So again, we have this small addition in the front here, which allows us to have a whole suite for art, get them all in this one area of the building, get some good northern light there. And then again, that one stair tower addition in this area.
I just got a quick question about the page before. You have these two open,
Areas that aren't colored in,
yeah.
that indicates a double height space, like you see over here. There's no
okay.
floor in there, so that's the height of the pool area, the former pool area, and the height of the gymnasium. So it's just an outline of the area above.
Thank you.
Welcome. So with that, on the previous page, we have the net square footages of what was requested in the ed spec and what is proposed. And here we have the instructional spaces, what was requested in the ed specs and what we're proposing in the new plans. And with all of those changes that I had mentioned, again, the three big ones are losing the natatorium, having that become the new auxiliary gymnasium, revising the auditorium itself to fit the proposed plan by adding in some teaching space in the back here and right-sizing the auditorium. So with all those changes, Mr. Pellman handed out the proposed ed spec revisions that would need to happen if you approve these plan changes. We went through the ed specs, and there's just some areas we'd have to tweak. Obviously, we're not going to be having any needs for an auditorium if you propose these plan changes, and then we would revise the requirements of the auxiliary gym, because currently it was describing renovating the old gym. Now we have a slightly bigger place where we can create a new auxiliary gymnasium, so we'd make those descriptions. And then with our descriptions of the auditorium, right-sizing that, and speaking of those changes I had mentioned in there. Dr. Sewell?
So how many seats in the present auditorium?
You have 721 seats in the present auditorium, and we are proposing 450 seats.
We're building it for an 800 student high school population, so 450 seats will house 2 classes at 200 students
So that's
each.
going to be enough?
And then any large-scale full school events you would have in the gymnasium with the new bleachers that we're proposing, we have 1,200 seats.
Okay. That kind of answers that question.
Ms. Galucci?
I didn't see where the school nurses office, are they where?
Yeah, we didn't
Okay,
drill down. They were in the same location that we had showed previously on the previous plan. We were just trying to make some big moves here. We're confident that we've given the required space. We would just have to go through another round of design development if you approve these changes, and we'd be happy to come back to the building committee and back to the Board of Ed showing you those.
Okay, so I guess since you handed the sheet out,
Sure.
the last line, remove adult ed from ECC. What is ECC?
Okay, the Early Childhood Center. So
Oh,
one of
okay,
the
Early
comments we got
Childhood
at the
and-
state is in Aliki's program, they have adult ed classrooms. And we were showing an adult ed classroom right up in this corner of the building, which would have been colored red in the previous plan.
Uh-huh.
The state said, well,
No.
we're not going to reimburse you for adult ed. So we said, in talking with the team, okay, so if we can have adult ed classes at some time, maybe
Yeah.
one little period in the day and more at night, and then during the day this becomes more of a YPP classroom?
YPP classroom.
What
Yes.
is YPP?
Young parent program.
Parents program?
Young parents.
Oh, okay. So, and that is reimbursable?
That is reimbursable.
Ah, okay.
So,
I don't know if it's too early to mention this, but since we are possibly losing the pool, which included instruction for students in lifeguarding, I was just thinking, could we explore getting something, maybe CPR or some other way that students who want to have, because many got their certification to become lifeguards and could get a summer job just through the high school. So maybe we could try to add something of that nature.
Well,
yeah, well, you have the new Allied Health Lab, and then you also have the health classroom downstairs as well, so I'm sure you could.
We are losing the pool?
yeah,
This
if
is
you
what
take
we are
out the
proposing
natatorium,
tonight.
you're losing the pool,
You
yes.
check it out.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
This is what we're putting up for you with the
Removing the
proposed
auxiliary
plan
gym.
changes.
The trade-off there sort of is, though, is unless they change their minds, the current plan for the senior community center calls for a pool.
Does
So,
not call for a competition-sized pool, it
It doesn't have to be a competition-sized pool to teach lifeguarding.
No, but for a swim team, it does.
Well, but swim team may be something we have to, I tend
gonna have to go, I
to agree with Mary that, okay, the swim team, that's a little sad, but it has not had that many participants, whereas the lifeguarding classes, I think, are substantially more important. But we probably could arrange to have those taken, if the community center, senior community center has a pool, we should be able to arrange to use that as a basis for lifeguarding classes, I would think. I would certainly hope so.
Depends on the depth, right? That's what,
I mean, the town should have a pool somewhere available to the town. And if it's in the communities, the senior community center, in some ways that might be a better location than in a school.
I can't speak to that.
Yeah, I know, but in terms of trying to satisfy the state's requirements to meet the budget we have to get to do the high school renovation, it sounds like a reasonably sensible solution. I would be really upset with it if the town wasn't planning to put a pool somewhere else.
Other questions?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, last time you provided us with a sheet with costs, of each area. Do we have that
With
now?
that, I'll give it back to Mr. Callahan.
Oh, okay.
I failed to hand those out.
Important.
So again, we have gone through the ed spec, and if you approve these plan changes and we go back to the state, we're already ready to sit down with you and make any revisions that we would have to do. One other thing that was on the proposed ed spec revisions, it mentions the press box. When we were up at the state, they were kind of coaching us. They were asking about our renovations out there, and they said, we don't really reimburse for press boxes. However, if you had some classes out there, and Dr. Garcia says, oh yes, our digital media production classes are going to be going out there, so we're going to get that into the ed spec as well.
Well, given that we've had 3 years of inflation since the budget passed, getting it down to what the budget was passed, there's almost $9 million of inflation since the budget went to referendum, and so you squeeze that out too, which I consider somewhat remarkable.
Right. Yeah, and we do in the document I just handed out. Let me explain what it is first. The top box just illustrates the percentage of the additions. So we've gone from approximately 15,000 to 7,000. The middle box is the allocation of the space, and again, for broad discussion purposes within the community, I think it's important that we understand this is still primarily a high school. About 75% of the area is high school. 18%, maybe 19% is ECC, the early childhood, and a very smaller number, 6%. A little more than 6% is the Board of Ed offices. The project cost, it may be a little misleading, so I want to be clear on this. The project costs that are in here reflect the costs that we had at our last meeting, and then there is a line item second from the bottom, which is the cost savings from the changes that Bob mentioned tonight. And we're still working on developing those, and we will have the cost associated with the pool and the relocation of the classrooms and so forth delineated at the next time we meet with you. So I'm certainly prepared to answer any questions regarding cost.
Mr. Gomez?
Okay, I have kind of two questions.
Certainly.
What are exactly fees, expenses, and contingency? That's 15.4% of total.
Yep.
And second question, where is the cost for the art, for the design, labor and stuff? How much are the architects, the designer, and stuff charging for this project?
Okay, that's a good question. So in the fourth from the bottom, fees, expenses, and contingency, that includes cost for the architect, the construction administrator, Colliers, who is our construction administrator or owner's representative. That also includes building permits, printing cost, all of the non-construction related items are in that category, as well as what we call the construction contingency, as well as the owner's contingency. So that $19 million is made up of a large number of individual items, and we'd be happy to. We have those broken down. Be happy to share those with you.
Sure.
But again, the architect fees are in that item. And by the way, the architectural fees are a pretty small fraction of that. It's not the 19 million.
So earlier you mentioned the lead certification and I never can remember the right set of initials.
PLA.
PLA.
Right.
I understand that the issue of whether PLA increased costs and to what extent is controversial.
I agree.
So PLA might be possible without a cost increase, or you don't know, or what?
Unlikely, but as a general outlook right now, the building committee's point of view is we are still working through the plan, the program, the state reimbursement, and the construction cost. Those are items that we have high level of confidence what those individual line items are. We've got a really excellent construction team here who has years of experience not only in schools but in schools with PLAs and non-PLAs. So as up till this point, up until I should say August, we have been working on the assumption that we would include a PLA. We did preliminary estimates associated with the PLA. But we're really not in a position yet to render an opinion regarding what its impact will be. It's my personal opinion that it'll have a impact by increasing the cost. That's a negative. There's certainly positive aspects of the PLA, and the building committee, once we get a better understanding from the state regarding the reimbursement, we're going to wrap our head around the PLA as well as the LEED Gold certification requirement. We've got pretty good energy conservation measures already kind of baked into the formula, which are very close to the LEED Gold, but there's alternatives to LEED Gold, and we don't want to make that judgment until we're better informed on the cost impacts, and we can go back to the town council with a more definitive outlook. Not only is what's the base cost, as of right now, we don't have the Board of Ed's endorsement of these changes, and if you guys don't go along with it, then the number we've presented tonight could change. So we're hoping to have a better handle on that after our October 15th meeting with the state.
Mr. Doyle?
Unless I'm mistaken, when you presented your numbers to us the last time, PLA and LEED Gold estimates were in.
That's correct.
But you've not put them in this.
That's correct. So the last meeting.
So does that mean the 123 is actually the last time you presented this? It was higher than 123.
Yes, it was almost $15 million higher.
So you did have an estimate the
Yes.
last time, but now you don't feel confident to give us an estimate.
We think it's probably going to be similar. It'll probably add about $15 million. So and I have a copy of the last time. So hold on.
So I guess the reason I said it, my understanding is that it's controversial, is that there's some negotiating room around that, is there not? When you actually get down to contracts.
Murphy, I want to be really careful because I'm not an expert on PLA. It's definitely controversial. The research that I've done personally is that the prices can be higher, they can be lower. There's lots of controversy. I think before the building committee and the town really embrace the decision one way or the other, is we have to. The building committee has a responsibility to fully understand, get some data together. Our preliminary efforts suggest it'll increase the cost for this type of project.
Okay.
So Mark, the bottom line is in August we presented an overall project, a total of $139 million. The changes that we've made between August and now added up to about 11 million of savings. So that gets us down, in the 125, which is the number we presented.
Yeah, I understand that, but it leaves 10 to 15 million ghosting out there of
Yep.
of expenses that we anticipate, but you don't want to put in the budget, and that I don't want to inflate the budget, but I also don't want to mislead people that it's going to be 112 if it's actually going to be
Right.
122.
If the town decides a PLA is a requirement, then we will be back here with a higher estimate.
They have already voted. The town council already voted to require a PLA. Am I correct in that?
They
Already decided
told
it
the
was
building committee to go work on a PLA.
Right.
So
So they've given you the. So unless you can
yeah,
change their
and
mind,
the number's on the table. It's just not summarized in tonight.
it's just not on this table right
It's
now.
on that table. That's
my
correct.
concern. That's that
I
we're
understand.
ghosting those numbers.
Yeah, and the paper is published the PLA estimate. I don't think there's anybody in town. The PL in our judgment, the PLA is going to add cost in the order of magnitude that we've presented, and at some point after we meet with the state, I'm confident the building committee will make a recommendation one way or the other regarding the PLA.
Yeah, so what would be the total cost of this project as it is right now? It has 112 million, but that's not it, right?
I'm sorry, it's not.
I mean, I'd like to know what would be the total cost of it. You have 112 millions.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
but that's not it, for what I hear. It's going to be 123.
Well, that depends.
if you,
What he's saying is it depends on whether the town really wants to go with PLA.
but
It
I
depends
mean,
on
but
whether you
the-
want to do gold leads.
But the town council didn't vote that it was
They also voted for $78 million. They're clearly going to have to rethink what they are willing to approve.
I'm thinking that 123 millions then?
Well, if to put, and again, I'm not speaking for the building committee. I'm speaking for myself tonight. I'll answer your question first. So if the project is required to move forward with lead, gold, and a PLA, the likely cost after the savings we've made up till tonight, you can add $15 million to the 112. So that's $127 million.
What
If
would
I've
be
done
the
my
state contribution to it?
State does not contribute for a PLA.
right.
So what would be the town cost? That's what I'm trying.
Town would have to absorb that $15 million.
So if our estimates of $15 million are accurate, if the town requires a PLA and lead gold, it's my judgment that the cost will be 100 and what did I say?
127.
27. Thank you. That's above the referendum amount. I don't believe the voters will support a project above the referendum amount if we go back to referendum. So my personal opinion is, and I'm advising the building committee, and when we have a better number on the PLA, we will advise the town council, likely, to proceed with a project that is below the referendum estimate. That is also contingent upon, I'm assuming, what the state's commitment is relative to reimbursement. Because even if we bring a project in at $112 million and the state reimburses us at a significantly lower rate than we anticipated, the burden on the taxpayers will be significant. And I'm not sure the town council, and I don't want to speak for them, but I'm not sure the town council would support a project even at $112 million if the state's reimbursement wasn't some reasonable number so that the impact to the voters is a reasonable number over a period of time. So we're not out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination. So
But what we have to do is consider the ed spec because the The budget is really the town councils and the board and the building committees purview. I mean, it's beyond the scope of our responsibility.
Right. And what we're asking tonight, those changes that we've made since August to now of about $11 million, we're hoping that's within the reason and from the educational standpoint and the Board of Education's goals and
So-
objectives.
What I need is a motion to add the proposed revisions to the ed spec to the agenda.
So moved.
Okay. Moved by Mrs. Lambert, second by Ms. Ray. Any discussion about, this is just to add the change of the ed specs to the agenda as, would be item E under action items. Any discussion?
So to be clear, this is not voting on the budget at all,
We're just voting on the ed specs, not the budget. Budget's not our responsibility. I mean, it's interesting to know, and we should have some idea of what the implication is because we're changing the ed specs to make the budget work. But our responsibility is the ed specs.
I think the budget is also part of our responsibility, but as long as we're clear, we're only voting on the ed specs tonight and not
That's-
this budget sheet. That's what I need. to
That's
clear.
correct.
But I think that even with the ed specs as they are, we're just going way over the amount that the town
Wait a minute,
would
right now, all
approve.
we're doing is talking about adding it to the agenda. You want to discuss the motion itself, we're going to do that later. So the motion on the floor is simply to add the change in the ed specs to the agenda.
So, action item 7D?
7E, yes.
D. I have ABC.
There's a D on there
We
already.
have it up to date.
The updated one had ABC.
Yeah, but there's one on the town website that I just downloaded that's got a D on it.
Look, if they don't have a D, mine have a D.
The
Yes.
updated one has a D, okay.
I had noticed that too. Somehow or other, the one with the D on it didn't get
Donation.
emailed to the board, but it is on the town website, so
I just picked one
that's
up.
what's posted.
H&R Block.
To action
So-
items?
So what's, just to go over the action items that are already on the town, that are posted on the town website. A is approval of the submission of the after-school program grant application for elementary schools. B is approval of submission of the after-school program grant application for Windham Middle School and Charles Barrows Academies. C is approval of the acceptance of a donation from H&R Block. D is approval of the Windham Middle School Grade 8 field trip to Washington, D.C. And we're proposing adding E, revisions to the ed specs. Windham High School ed specs, okay?
Okay.
We move the vote?
Are we ready to vote? All in favor? Okay, those are added to the agenda. All right, so that puts us to the next discussion item, which is the Windham Middle School Grade 8 trip to Washington, D.C.
Yes, Windham Middle School had proposed field trip to Washington, D.C., and this field trip is really an educational field trip. The students will have the opportunity to familiarize themselves with major landmark in Washington, D.C.
Miss Kate B.
Oh, which should be,
How do we get?
Oh, I'm sorry.
How do we get down to D already?
No, this is the discussion item. It's actually on the agendas.
I'm sorry.
B, we have B.
No,
Again, we
it's,
don't have-
it's,
Yeah, we missed B. Yeah, B was the briefing of the referendum.
Looking at it.
All right, on Friday, I got, please use this updated board packet. If there's been another updated agenda, I have not yet received it, so.
We
Yeah.
just received it.
I noticed that. So I went to the
That
town
one is updated.
website
That one
and
you have there, you have it
Yeah,
there?
the one that's printed in here, but I read the one at home and went over it over the weekend, so I'm just not
This is
understanding.
the one that I picked up from the table.
Right.
Right, but that's not the one we were emailed. We were emailed one, and then we were emailed an updated one, and this stuff still isn't on.
Is this the updated one?
yes,
The updated one that I was emailed on Friday has ABC for action items. It still has no D on it.
Yeah, ABC.
So this isn't a complete agenda that we were emailed on Friday, even the second version.
So where did that one just come from?
I picked it up over there.
These are the ones that we
Oh,
added.
all right.
When did
So
that?
there's
These are the
A, B, C
unread
under
on Monday.
discussion items, okay. So, all right, so I believe that Janet was on vacation, and so there may have been some glitch
They
here.
were the substituting. Yeah, Johnny was on vacation, they were substituting.
But
Can't live without you.
the agenda that I have in front of me on my iPad is the one that is posted on the town's website. And my understanding is the one that's posted on the town's website is the official agenda.
We have a substitute. She did email everybody the new revised agenda. No?
No,
She did read it.
no, it didn't get emailed.
It didn't get
It
emailed.
was not, I just went through the emails, not
She just
there.
posted it. Oh, she posted it. She
It was,
posted
it was posted,
Yeah.
but it wasn't mailed to anybody.
Okay, so was there paperwork to go along with this eighth grade trip to Washington DC?
It doesn't say anything about it being a reference.
She
It
did,
says it's a discussion item.
she did mail it in the packet. She mailed the DC.
No.
She mailed what?
No.
Let me
Nope.
see it.
I saw it in
She's gonna
some
make
of-
copies for us.
She mailed it, she mailed the
It's not your
information.
fault, Mrs. Testa.
Wait, she mailed the information, Mrs. Lambert, for the field trip. Here it is in the packet.
She did?
Yes.
It did not. In the Friday version 1 or version 2.
Take a look at reference 4.
Yeah, there's no reference for in either email packet.
All right, guys.
Let's get
I
the-
don't-
let's
It's
get the
coming,
copy.
it's coming.
I think you'll find that it
Coming.
didn't get emailed.
Let me make sure they didn't email it because
It did not get emailed. That's the glitch right there. It did not get emailed. And of course, what's posted on the town website does not include
packet.
the references.
but in my packet that she gave me, it's in there.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
she probably
because she
photocopied it
handed
for you
it
this
to you.
morning.
She didn't email it to us.
So can we move on
Sure,
to
can
the
we
next
check
thing?
You want to
There's
skip that
this-
while they're making
Yes.
copies? Okay. So,
Missed an action, and you've missed a discussion item.
Discussion of referendum.
Referendum budget, the debrief, yes. Mark said that.
okay, so
So we're on 4, discussion item.
So this is discussion item C, Windham Middle School grade A field trip, which we do not have, but,
5B.
so while they're making copies over there, why don't we do the committee reports and then we'll come back to that.
Murphy, you've missed 5B.
We're not even on 5 yet.
Yes, we are. We're on
Five
discussion.
D?
Discussion items, 5B, debrief regarding budget referendum.
Oh,
Right after high
okay,
school
right,
renovation.
all right, you're right. I skipped that. All right, so the only thing I have on the budget referendum is a note, wait a minute, I've got that. The Board of Finance,
Back and take it back.
A, B,
wait a second, now I gotta go back to,
the what? The
I
package.
got it
is
here.
Friday.
Too many things on my screen.
She didn't send us something.
Information right
There it is. All right, so
This is Friday.
as we all know, the budget did not pass yesterday.
I don't know about Monday. Let me
And so the Board of Finance is current plan
Shall meeting agenda. There's
for the
nothing-
next steps
There's nothing.
will be to hold a hearing on the budget
We have it here.
on Wednesday, October 16th. A town meeting, special meeting to take actions on the budgets on Tuesday, October 1st. That's next week. Hearing on the budgets on Wednesday, October 16th. That's public hearing. Town meeting on the budgets on Tuesday, November 26th. I do not know why they want to take from October 16th to November 26th between the
Because there's an election in the
hearing
middle.
and, yeah, but then, anyway, but these are the dates that I've got. And then that would schedule the referendum on Tuesday, December 3rd. That's what the Board of Finance, Chair of the Board of Finance is proposing. As far as I know, the Board of Finance hasn't met as a board, so the schedule may be subject to change. Okay, but what they've got is a special meeting next Tuesday with a public hearing on October 16th, town meeting on November 26th, and referendum on December 3rd.
Let's be fair, this is just a report from the chair of the Board of Finance. The entire board has not yet voted on this.
That's why I said, as far as I know, the Board of Finance hasn't met, so this is the proposal from the Chair of the Board of Finance, who is not running for reelection. So, let me see. So the election is November 5th, but the people who are elected on November 5th don't get sworn in until November 19th. That is, if I got that correct, it's 2 weeks. So that's probably why the town meeting is in it, anyway. That's the schedule that I have from the chair of the Board of Finance. Anything else that we want to discuss about the referendum yesterday? All right, sorry about skipping B there. I guess I really didn't want to talk about the referendum.
It was what
Oh,
it
boy.
was.
All right, have we got copies of the,
Yeah, I believe Ms. gave it to him.
Has to give them to us.
This one?
so,
Yeah.
so do we want to talk about the middle school grade trip, 8th grade trip to Washington DC?
Just a brief description. We ready to talk about it?
Is that all right?
It does a brief description. The middle school is planning to have a field trip to Washington, D.C. in the month of June 1st to June 3rd. It's really a great experience for a student to familiarize themselves with those landmarks like the White House, the Smithsonian, the museum, different areas of Washington, D.C., and familiarize themselves with the government and other areas of Washington, D.C. I think it's important. I know that high school students go to Washington, D.C., but it's important. No?
No.
Don't go to
Washington-
Unfortunately
high school students
not.
haven't been to Washington DC in over 4 years.
But
They
they've
were
been here
going
before.
to,
Well, they have been
but it didn't
before.
happen.
When I was since I've been here, so my honor society had been one group.
No, all students, all high school juniors usually have the opportunity every other year, and the in-between years, they go to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But there hasn't been either of those trips in over 4 years.
Well, the middle school is planning, and there's a lot of middle school across the country that do go to Washington D.C. And I think we have the middle school administrator here that would like to explain to the board and present their case. And if you have any question from the middle school, we bring it to your attention because they're planning to meet with the parents of middle school students very early to talk about expectations and how and how this field trip will take place to communicate and inform parents. So, Dr. Ware is here if they have any question from the board.
Come on up. Are you guys looking for chaperones?
Have you seen the second page? They got like more people than kids possibly going, so.
It's probably on.
Probably on.
Now it's off. Sorry.
Just for a second, we also have it on the discussion item, but we do have it an action item.
Yeah, I know. We'll approve it later.
Yeah.
Or vote on approving it.
Good evening. So, as Dr. Garcia was explaining, this trip, just give it a little historical context. As I took over as interim principal last year, there was a lot of feedback from the students about the end of the year trips. The end of the year trips have included Six Flags, High Meadows, and Holiday Hill. A lot of the students had expressed discontent with those trips, and a lot of the students had been talking to not only myself but also teachers and talking about their 8th grade experience. So more specifically, we have conversations all the time about giving our children more experiences outside of Windham County. And though those experiences, even though they require a really great effort to do so, we actually talked to the kids last year and asked them, what would like to do? And we talked about DC, and you should have seen the 7th graders who are now 8th graders extremely excited about it. We talked about what it could look like, car washes, intense fundraising, especially for those who are not able to come up with the value of the trip. However, we also talked about splitting fundraisers between grades so we could support students, offer them sort of a scholarship, if you will. And so as we worked into this year, we actually we did the research, Dr. Santi, Esteban, myself, we actually called around a couple of travel agencies, and the prices of the trip were between $400 and $700. And so we really thought about it, and Explorica, which is the travel agency Dr. Santi found, was around $450. And that included the actual transportation, that includes many of the meals, that includes the hotel, which was the big piece about taking our kids overnight. And so as I spoke with Dr. Garcia and Dr. Youngberg and others, it was made clear to me that we needed approval. So we did the research necessary, and my apologies that you didn't have that beforehand. However, I will tell you that we've talked about it and we haven't done any informational sessions of anything of the sort. However, the response from parents has been very overwhelmingly supportive and looking forward to something. We even have it down to a payment plan structure that make it easy for the families, as well as we actually told the families tonight in our open house that we anticipate upon approval that we'd have information sessions to actually help them get through the process. So that's how this came about.
I just want to say I think it's wonderful that the students made that desire to travel clear and that you followed through with it. And I did think, years ago when my kids were in the middle school, that it would have been nice to have had something like each year at something like Hartford, the state capital, 6th grade, Boston, 7th grade. And I never even thought of DC. That's beyond my imagination here, but I think that's a great idea.
I'll also say 8th grade DC trips are comparable to what other schools do throughout the country. I've been on several DC trips as a former middle school educator and as one who actually put one on because we actually decided to not go through a tour company. So I've been to DC quite a bit, and so I will tell you, when you go to DC during those months of May and June, you will see a lot of 8th grade students.
I think you have to prepare them for the walking that's going to be involved.
Intense.
If you are jamming all of this stuff into 2 days.
comfortable
Intense.
And you're going to have to get on a bus to get back at some point if you're going to be back by 10. So
Absolutely.
They need to be prepared for the rigors of it's not going to be just kind of casually go around and brain drain of all the museums and stuff like that. I applaud you for expanding. A family couldn't go to DC for a couple of days for $450 with food to be included, and I think that's what a lot of our families are looking at is you can't just take one child and one parent. So giving them this experience that many of them wouldn't get otherwise, I very much applaud the middle school for taking this initiative.
And I hear you. And so what I also will say in addition to that is that that is part of the experience. They do not know. They don't know the intense fatigue that comes with walking all over DC. However, that is part of the experience. And then they grow to expect it when they take another trip like out of the country, probably in the foreseeable years. However, that's exactly what we want them. Dr. Santi Esteban and myself, we've spoken at great lengths about the bus trip down because like I said, I've done 6 or 7 and we joked about everything that happens on the bus. And that's the experience. That's something that they will live and talk about forever.
Well, the teachers are going to talk about it when they
That as well.
I've heard about high school field trips to DC and Pennsylvania, so bless all of these adults that are going along with them.
So I hope you do quite a bit of advanced planning if you're going to take on the Smithsonian. It's not called the nation's attic for nothing. Besides from the American Museum, there's the National Aeronautic and Space Science Museum.
It is. The Natural History Museums,
I've been
absolutely.
down there since they opened the Black History Museum.
Yes, the Martin Luther King Memorial.
And each of those is almost worth a day by themselves.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to cover all these other sites, and still, you really have to stop and think about what are you going to actually stop and see at the Smithsonian, because you're not going to have time to see much more than just a little bit of each.
Absolutely. Well, the also piece, I'm sorry to belabor the point, done this before. It's also because that time in DC is very humid and hot. It's also it's a reprieve from the heat. So they actually will go in the museum, but it's all their Smithsonian's are air conditioned. And so as a person who's walked all over DC with hundreds of kids, I will say, even though they may not be taking it in, it's something that they remember later on. And most of those students I've had in the past who are adults now, they talk about it and they go as adults now, and they go with the open lens, the frame of reference of when they were 8th grade, and much more appreciation as a high schooler or if in the college, or now they have families. So I don't expect them to go into the Smithsonian and say, look at the Wright brothers exhibit. However, you may have some who will, but it's still about the experience of being with their friends. It's something that they're going to cherish from years to come.
The Fort McHenry flag is hard to forget.
It's very true.
The Apollo space capsule is hard to forget.
Yep.
And but there's just a lot of stuff here. And I've always found the Vietnam Memorial.
Oh, the Vietnam Memorial.
hard not to visit.
Exactly.
Mr. Doyle?
I've actually chaperoned one of the TC events with one of the high school students, so it's an excellent experience. But I'm a little concerned about some of the details here. It looks like we're emptying out most of the middle school staff. What is the plan for the 8th graders that don't go? Because invariably all 200 won't go. And what is the plan for substitutes for all of these staff members we're taking out? How are we going to cover the school and substitutes?
Nope, absolutely. So what I will say to you is the thought is we know that all 200 won't go. And so with that said, and for those who select out or either say they don't go for other reasons that I can't think of at this moment, we actually do have a plan in place. For lack of better words, it is called absorption. So it's at the end of the year on purpose because it's after SBAC testing, it's after all the major requirements and commitments we have. So we actually have the plan of chaperones that we have between not just 8th grade, but some 7th grade people, so we don't empty out the whole 8th grade staff, as well as some of the administrators and some of the other paraprofessionals who are allowed to go on the trip. Because I don't know if you noticed in here, it's actually for chaperones to go, they actually pay for our chaperones to go. So the kids who get absorbed with other classes, I'll be honest, it's not any different than what we do on other field trips. So, for example, we went to Goodwin Forest today, and all of our 6th graders, all of them didn't want to go or something like that. We actually had a plan in place. The team leaders devised a plan. They went to other teachers, and we actually had a regular day of classes. So what that number looks like, we actually cannot say until we actually get closer to the date and see what our numbers look like. And then if we don't have, let's say it's half of that, maybe it's 100, then that means 10 chaperones don't need to go. It changes from 20 to 10.
Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, I got this right. We should be at committee reports.
You got it right.
All right, so, all right. Committee reports. All right, so the first one is all right, so we have switched to the Finance and Audit Committee meeting the week before board meeting. So we met last Wednesday, and we will meet again on October 3rd at 6, and the Executive Committee will meet on October 3rd at 7. So Ms. Ide sent an email out earlier today, and she said she'd be happy to meet she'd rather meet at 7 than 6 at the Executive Committee anyway. So the Finance and Audit will meet at 6 because that way staff that attend Finance and Audit will be able to go home and not have to stay for the Executive Committee.
The 3rd or the 2nd? The 2nd is Wednesday.
Well, the 2nd. Whichever that Wednesday is, I'm sorry.
No, it's
I
okay.
have the wrong
So you're
date.
meeting at 5?
6.
No,
Six.
the Finance and Audit meets at 6, and the Executive Committee will meet at 7.
The next day.
That's the week
Same
before.
day.
Same day.
Oh,
That's
same
a-
day. Okay.
That's the 2nd of October. That's the week before the next board meeting. Okay, so at our last Finance and Audit meeting, we got our first budget report for the month of August from Munis. Nothing terribly out of line in that report. There's still a few items within the Munis budget schedule that still need a little cleaning up. For example, there's no budget item for work-study students, even though we routinely hire work-study students during the year. So there's a couple of little glitches that will get straightened out. The grants, by and large, have not yet been awarded, but as soon as they are, we'll get an additional page from Munis on the grants, and that will not only show the amounts awarded, but it'll also show the amounts expended. And because we want to know about that, one of the things that we talked to the superintendent about was the contracts that are let to do things like professional development. Because the grants are monitored and audited by whoever supplied the grants, the board is not required to approve professional development contracts. But we're going to be asked about the amounts of those contracts that are charged to the grants so that we know what's being spent. And if there are questions about the grants, the contracts themselves, then we can get copies from the central office. Amazingly enough, there are no budget transfer requests this month. Shock and surprise. All right. There is, you may have heard, I think we got an email about it, and when there is a grievance in process brought by the teachers union relative to the teachers contract that, depending on how it turns out, may have budget implications. But since that's still in process, and it looks like it's going to end up coming to the board because it hasn't been resolved at the superintendent level. So it was not appropriate for us to discuss it last week. And we'll be scheduling, not tonight, but at some point soon, a special meeting with a session, executive session, I think, with the union to discuss the grievance.
Just a clarification, Murphy. So, Dr. Garcia, have you responded to the grievance officially?
We're still in discussion.
Well, then
They sent us,
They sent it to- yeah.
they sent us an email, but if they resolve it before it gets to us, wonderful.
well, it depends on the resolution, I would imagine.
Yes, it does.
There's a certain number of days in contract language.
I know there is, and
that
we're
has to be
beyond those
resolved.
days already.
We're way beyond those days.
That's why
so.
I'm concerned about the length of time it's taking to get to it. I'm also concerned about once Dr. Garcia makes her decision, that the board reviews it or acts upon it, or.
Well,
some
it's going to end up
manner.
coming to us one way or another because there's a significant budget implication, or at least there's possibly a significant,
Right.
and the budget hasn't passed yet, so,
Correct.
which complicates matters further.
Okay, so I guess to be specific, I would like that decision sooner rather than later, that we've had enough time, I think, to make that decision. I would hope, Dr. Garcia, that you can give them an answer and let's move forward.
But maybe your decision will come before mine. I'm looking at different options and that take time. So if the board wants to proceed, maybe you guys can make,
Well, we can't, because the process is you decide, and then it comes to us, one way or the other. It's very spelled out contractually and whatnot, that they file it, it goes to the HR director, then it goes to your level, and then usually within a 30-day period, the decision is rendered. I'm concerned about the length of time it takes us to close some of these grievances. We went with the superintendent of buildings almost 9 months before that was closed, and we seem to extend these periods for a long, long time. We just need to make a decision and move forward.
The superintendent building didn't have any grievance. That was not a grievance. That was an investigation that took. that period.
Investigation, and then there should have been a conclusion of the
Oh.
investigation, and that took 9 months. It takes too long to get to these conclusions. Okay.
Well,
that's-
yeah, we did have the president of the union at the meeting, who made it clear that he's ready for us to get it
Right,
done.
and quite frankly, that's another one of my questions. Why was he there? Why was it on our agenda, and why was he there? Because it shouldn't have been on our agenda, and he shouldn't have been invited.
Well,
'Cause
yes,
He was clearly on the impression that there was going to be discussion, which he could
Well,
not
at
have
the
been
time
under
it
that
got
impression.
put on our agenda, it seemed like we were, and then I was told that no, it's still in process. Okay,
That was not a decision of the superintendent to put it on the agenda. Those want to be clear.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
all right. Well, all right. Okay, so that basically is the report for finance and audit, unless there are questions. Yes,
I do
ma'am.
have a question. I still haven't gotten an answer to my question about the change in the bus contract. When we signed the new bus contract, there was an increase in the amount that we were spending, and I haven't seen an
We ha-
answer to that
We're,
question.
we're meeting tomorrow, not to look only at that, to look at some other increases. So Rita and I are set tomorrow to look at contract increases, bus increases. So you will have that maybe by next week, midweek, Rita, midweek, when we sit down and look at other, yeah.
Just where the avenue of funding
Yeah.
is coming from, because we signed it in August, so it's been well over a month now, and we still haven't been able to identify where this
But
money is
we
coming
definitely is
from.
going to come because with kids are not walking, they want to.
I understand it's definitely gonna come, but is it definitely gonna come at a cost, as in a budget overrun or shortchanging something somewhere else?
No,
And I need
it's
to
not
know
going to be a
about that.
budget overrun, but there will be some deduction somewhere.
Okay.
There will be some deduction somewhere. That could be program, that could be personnel somewhere, but kids will have transportation.
Okay, so what should happen, once we get some of the glitches in the budget document that's in Mutant and Straightened Out is that the numbers should be updated to reflect the cost of the current contract. And because we are currently operating under the minimum budget requirement, under the MBR, which is basically the 18-19 budget, it's going to show the budget is overrun, and we're going to have to decide how to get the budget back into line.
So we already made the deduction of the 1,354,000. Those already have made. What we have to go and do now is to go and look at last year's budget and use only those numbers and make some deductions based on last year's numbers.
Well, we should have a budget
Right.
that shows everything, and like I said, if you start for last year's numbers and you put in this year's transportation contract, that's going to exceed last year's total, and we're going to have to figure out a way to.
So this is not
Downsize
as
it.
easy as people think, because you're right. Once you put in transportation, there is an increase in transportation, and so
Something else is gonna have to get
something has
squeezed
to
down.
go. And in order to make a decision, what goes is not those. Okay, this is going to go. Dr. Murphy is going to go. You have to sit down and look at different program. You look at your vision. You look at your initiative. You look at what is aligned to what you're doing. So it's not an easy, and then it involves more than one person. It involves principals, involve central office, involve lots of different people in order to get this done.
That's all right. So, aside from the cuts that you've already recommended
Yeah.
to us that we need to talk about, I'm not sure what the Board of Finance is going to do now, but we should be thinking about the possibility that we'll have to live for the entire year with the amount of money that was in the 18-19 budget. And we had a 3% increase in the teacher's contract and a number of other increases. And so how do we make that work? And we're probably going to have to need to plan on acting on that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I would agree with that. Also, because of that I think 1.54 million of the cuts we've made, several of those cuts were to push things into the capital budget, which has not been approved. So we may be looking at new places to make those cuts, because we switched IT over to the capital improvement of close to $500,000. If that the budget doesn't go down, that money's not going to be available. So that's another 500 out of our operating. We moved quite a bit into the capital that may not be there.
Yes,
It's-
I
need
think
to
the
be
whole
looking at that real-
process of what's going on with the budget numbers needs to be
We need to be
thought
looking
about
at
a
real
lot,
hard.
a lot.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
we're a third of the way into the new school year, well, into the budget year,
Yes.
fiscal year, and we don't know exactly where these numbers are landing, so.
Well,
it's a
we
concern.
know where the MBR is, and so if we plan on operating on that, then we know that we'll have at least that much.
And that's the numbers that we're using currently in operation. We're using the
Yeah,
MBR
we
from last
are,
year.
but we're actually we're not paying last year's numbers for staff. We're
Right.
not paying last year's numbers for
Yeah.
for transportation. We're not paying last year's number for health care and benefits. And so we have some budget issues of immediate concern if we're stuck with last year's total. Okay. Planning and design?
We're down to meeting once a month. The reason for having 2 meetings a month was that we were supposed to hire an architect to be able to do that, but it became untenable with the budget we were working on last year and with some of the things that came to light. So we didn't hire an architect to work on the revision of the facility master plan. Therefore, I don't need the second meeting every month, so we will meet again next week.
Okay. You're gonna meet next
First
week?
Thursday of the month, yep.
Okay.
The October, that's why I was concerned about the second or the third, because the third is school planning and design, so I didn't want us to have 3 committee meetings in a row, so.
Okay. Okay, so, all right, so Finance and Audit and Executive Committee are meeting on the 2nd, Planning and Design is meeting on the 3rd.
Correct.
Policy. Where are you?
Policy is meeting tomorrow at 5:30,
Okay,
Where? Central office?
a central office, yep.
okay. And,
No other report to give you.
all right. And the Executive Committee has not met, but a meeting has been scheduled for next week, so we've already talked about that. That brings us to action items, right? So the first action item, I'll entertain a motion to approve submission of the after-school program grant application for elementary schools.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
second.
All right, so, all right, so Finance and Audit and Executive Committee has not met, but a meeting has been scheduled for next week, so we've already talked about that. That brings us to action items. So the first action item, I'll entertain a motion to approve submission of after-school program grant application for elementary schools.
So moved.
Second,
Any discussion?
This is the same one we approve every year?
Every year, yeah.
Is it the
It's
same
done.
amount as it was last year?
This is a little bit less than last year.
How much is a little bit less?
Commissioner, you know exactly how much less this one?
50,000 less,
Less.
maybe?
How much less is the application than it was last year?
How much less?
About, is it less about 20, about 15, 10,000, about,
About 50,000 less.
about 15,000 less?
Okay.
Is this the maximum we can apply for, or did we do with some BASP
Well,
program?
this is what they tell us you can get.
Okay, any other discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor? Okay, that passes. All right, next item, I'll entertain a motion to approve submission of the after-school program grant application for Windham Middle School and Charles Barrows Academies.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, once again, this is an annual grant. And I guess the question is this the same amount of money?
This one is the same. This one is the same.
Okay, so this is what it was last year. Any other discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept the donation from H&R Block.
We'll take it.
That's,
So moved.
okay,
Second.
all right.
By the way, how much? You think
How
around?
much is the,
Pens.
It's pens.
400
Pens.
4,500 pens.
Yeah,
With ink?
packet. Yeah, do they all say H&R Block on the side? They do?
Probably do.
of course they do.
That's okay, we need pens. Our budget got cut, we need pens, so we'll take them from wherever we can get them.
Which kids are allowed to use pens?
Right,
All
I
kids
thought
are allowed
everybody
to use
used
pens,
number
just
two
not in math.
pencils.
Do they still use pens?
They always told me to bring a number two pencil.
Yeah, I didn't use a pen in school.
I'm ready to
Wow.
vote.
Yes.
Okay,
Question.
are we ready to vote? All in favor?
We'll take it.
Okay.
With
That's
gratitude.
approved,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so now I'll accept a motion to approve the middle school's 8th grade field trip to Washington DC.
So moved.
Second?
Okay? Now, do we have any further discussion now that we did put it on the agenda?
Good
We got a
luck.
presentation on it. Everybody happy? Ready to vote? All in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. And item E, I'll entertain a motion to revise the ed specs for the Windham High School renovation project as laid out on the handout supplied by the building committee.
So moved.
Second?
Janet, you have a copy of that? Janet, you have a copy of
Yeah,
that?
we can give Janet, do you have a copy of this, Janet?
Yes, I do, thank you.
Okay,
Can I say something?
Hmm?
Can I say something?
yes.
Okay. I just, as a board member, or as a parent, first off, I'm dead set against getting rid of the natatorium. I've had 3 children who have swum, 2 have taken lifeguarding courses here. My youngest was signed up for lifeguarding. The pool is currently empty. I would love to get our pool back. However, as a building committee member, the state made it very clear when we met with them last month that they give 0 reimbursement for our pool. So that wouldn't be included in the 112 million. That would have to be an outside number. And that we have 3 current swim team members, 2 boy and 1 girl, from Windham. And we have a co-op with other schools that fill in our swim teams nicely. I understand this is a necessity to get under the 112 million with or without a PLA. This is absolutely a necessity. I'm heartbroken over it, and I don't think it's okay, because this is not what we promised the voters. But we knew that something was gonna have to give somewhere, and while I'm sad that this is given fiscally and space-wise, I understand that this is a reality of what we have to do.
Okay. Anyone else?
Ditto. Ditto. Feel the same.
And somebody needs to let the Special Olympics know that this year we won't have a pool available for them apparently, and in the future we probably won't either. They're probably gonna have to seek out another venue
If we
now.
make this change, when is the pool actually gonna be closed?
The pool is closed now, there's no water in it.
Okay, so,
And that makes swimming difficult in empty pools.
yes, I understand, but,
Diving
so
was-
so the pool is, I mean, given that I'm not really sure that 'Cause we don't know when the actual construction date on the renovation is gonna start. So does that affect, is the pool effectively closed forever at this point, or?
No, it's not closed forever, but we wanted to wait to see a decision, what decision the building committee and the board is gonna go with the pool. I mean, there's a part that needs to be fixed in the pool, but we definitely wanted to hear where you guys were headed with the pool before we make
Okay.
a final decision.
Well, I mean, see, so I hate to leave the Special Olympics literally high and dry at this point.
But I think those
Low
are
and dry.
separate issues, Murphy. We think, we should vote on the NSPECs and maybe have a discussion, because I wasn't
Yeah.
aware the pool was closed, so
Yes,
I would like to see
okay.
that added. to
And
the
it
agenda,
doesn't
but
seem
that's a
like
different
changing the
discussion.
X-specs means that we necessarily need to leave the pool
Yeah, the
closed this
NSPECs have nothing to do
spring.
with the current state of the pool.
Yeah,
Just
right,
so-
okay.
I have a question. Say we got it to 112 million. What would be the state contribution to that?
Isn't it 78, 79%?
No, I don't know.
79.6%, but it doesn't include soft costs
Certain
and other
things.
things like that.
Yeah, but
There's
let's
certain
say it
things
was 112 total. What would be the state contribution?
When the referendum was passed, the proposed number for state reimbursement, at the time the referendum was passed, was $68.3 million, okay? But that number was based on some specs considering the amount of footprint for the school versus the amount of footprint for early childhood versus the amount of footprint for, okay? And the state's not stuck with that number. So, and the current state reimbursement, even with their $78 million number, is at about 61 million. So they're $6 or $7 million below what the referendum said. And they could come back up, they could stay where they are, they could come back up more than, we'll have to see what they do.
In our last discussion, we were optimistic that the number would go up somewhat from the 78 million that they originally, the November after the referendum, they originally had discussed, but they have not given us back a concrete number yet. We'll be meeting with them again, as I think Mr. Callahan said, on October 15th.
Thank you.
No problem. So it's in flux right now. Reimbursements is 78.6, I believe, but
The
Nothing's-
percentage was
yeah.
somewhere around that, yeah.
79.6 rather.
Okay,
So,
the
take off soft costs, you add
town
in
would be in the
this.
40, 50th.
Right. We're hoping. We're hoping.
Yeah, it would be nice if they got above the 68 number that was proposed at referendum.
Right.
Yes, sir.
I thought we were clear. We're not discussing the budget. This is just the NSPEC. So
Correct.
can we
That's
stay
right.
to the NSPECs and make the vote and not discuss the budget?
That's,
Because
that's,
I'm
that's
not
basically
comfortable.
all we're responsible for.
I'm asking you to control the meeting so we don't go into
Okay.
budget discussion.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion?
No.
Okay, so are we ready to vote on the ed specs, on the change to the ed specs? Okay, all in favor? Okay, that's unanimous, thank you. Okay, do we want to take a few seconds to talk about the pool and its status vis-à-vis particularly the Special Olympics? So there need to be some money spent in order to
Dr.
reopen
Ware.
it?
Yeah, it's about, thank you, Dr. Ware. It's about a minimum of $15,000 to fix the pool, to get the part for the pool, about 15,000. And we were waiting to hear, I mean, where the committee was headed with the pool. If the committee was gonna keep the pool, then, something that could have been done. If the committee didn't want to keep it, or decide not to keep it. But it's about 15,000, Dan Mrs. Dan DeMarcos has done the research about the part, and we're looking at about $15,000 to fix it.
Even if we kept the pool in the ed specs, that doesn't affect, I mean, that would affect once construction starts. So what we did is change what's gonna happen once the renovation starts. But up to that point, the only question is whether or not we can afford to reopen the pool for the swim team and the Special Olympics.
It's
And-
costly, and we didn't have that budgeted,
Okay,
the $15,000.
so it's basically we have to think about where we get $15,000. We don't have to decide that tonight, but that's the deal.
We'll be discussing it next week at school planning and design.
Okay, you want to add that to your agenda, that'd be good.
I need to go.
Okay,
The other meeting is canceled.
okay. Anyone, there's public comments left on the agenda, anyone for public comment? Yes. Yeah, you can use the mic because we do have some people at home that watch us on television. Make sure it's on. You can tell us your name too, please.
Sure. Benita Calkins. I live here in Willimantic. Came back after a number of years to find things have changed greatly. I'm very sympathetic about the pool situation. I did support the budget, by the way, because I
Thank
believe in
you.
education. I came from New Canaan originally, so I know how important this is. I have one question. Has anyone considered the fact that Eastern is across the road and has a pool? That's the only question I have.
Good question.
We
Good
have.
question.
We have.
Yeah.
And
that's-
hopefully that's a home that Special Olympics might be able to find for the long term. But I'm just concerned that, you know, they don't plan these things overnight. They don't decide the beginning of March. It's been here for 40 years, the Special Olympics. And so I want to give them enough time to find an alternate location and make arrangements if they need to.
Yes, ma'am.
On? Okay. I'm upset.
What's your name?
Yeah, let's have.
My name is Kristen DeGray. I live in Willimantic. I have a student at Barrows, a student at E.O. Smith, and I'm also an employee of this board. I'm upset because I feel that there is a lack of urgency by this board, by some members on this board, in regards to our budget situation. I came tonight expecting a discussion about the failed budget referendum, and instead there was a little bit of laughter and not much of a discussion except to say we need to have a serious discussion about the budget. This board is missing self-reflection. This board is missing open and honest discussion about this budget process. There are many canceled meetings. There are members who miss multiple meetings. I don't feel represented by you. I don't feel represented as a community member. I don't feel represented as a member of your staff, and I don't feel represented as a parent. A teacher told me today that she was looking through the trash to find paper clips. Now that's just a small anecdote, so think what you will of that. This is a serious situation, and you need to talk about it now, and we need to address why people are voting no. I vote yes. I disagree with no voters, but I understand why they vote no, because they don't feel like they have a voice. And we need to really think about what we can do to address this situation. I feel frustrated. I feel really, really sad. And I feel scared for the kids in Windham, my biological children and my school children. So please, please take this a little bit more seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else would like to speak? Okay. There was an executive session on the agenda posted on the town hall, but we're not going to hold that tonight, so. So unless there's something else, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Wait.
Oh, I just did want to ask regarding field trips, why the Spain field trip won't be taking place at the high school.
The teacher and the director of bilingual education have been working. The cost, one of the issues, the cost. That's what I've explained. The bilingual education, the field trip requests go first to the director of bilingual education that has to approve it, then it comes to the superintendent. In conversation with her, I think one of the issues, the extreme high cost of the field trip.
I still think that people should have the opportunity to plan for that.
So, yeah, but
So,
one of the,
I mean,
yeah,
it's
one
not
of
even on the books.
One of the questions they have to answer in the field trip is how they're going to get the sources of funding, like in this field trip, how they're getting the sources of funding. And that's a question that needs to be answered before they can submit it for approval, is what would be their sources of funding. That's on the application, and so they have not ironed that out yet.
That's not one of, well, I heard some other discussion about
I
it.
am giving you
but-
information from the director of bilingual education.
Anyone else?
Just to add, you heard this tonight, Dr. Ware made the comment that they will fund raids, they will give opportunity for parents to pay. So what they're doing is to making sure that all kids in the middle school, unless there's some other situation, maybe discipline matters, have the opportunity to attend this field trip to Washington, D.C. The conversation with the high school, not with me, but I know has been, how can we offer opportunity for students to attend the field trip to Spain? And I know that that discussion is what been taking place. So what needs to be done in order for kids to be able to go to Spain?
They had all fundraisers last year, I mean, because my son participated. But I also want to say, as far as I know, there's no field trips for the high school students, out of town, except maybe to Hartford. And I do think that we're really restricting opportunities and just having the chance to do it.
I will follow up with Mrs. Dr. Mudambe tomorrow to see where that is.
Or a DC trip.
Yeah.
Or a Philadelphia trip or something. There's no
nothing.
opportunity. My older two children went to both places with their AP classes.
Well,
and all students were open to it. When Ms. Osuba was on the board, she made sure it was
That's one
open
thing,
to
yeah,
all
there were
students.
lots of field trips. We haven't
There
seen this lately, but since I've been here, they've
Band
been
isn't doing a
DC,
field trip.
Pennsylvania.
Nobody's doing a field
Last
trip.
year, they started to plan a field trip to DC, actually, here at the high school, and then lack of participation.
And lack of
Yeah.
fundraising, because
lack
the
of
plan didn't
fundraising.
come out until February. And they were going in April or May,
Yeah.
so, yeah. So there wasn't enough time for some families to gather
That
the
would be
funds. But
nice.
if you do like the middle school's doing and let
Yeah.
them know in September or October, or if we can make this a trend, they can start fundraising their sixth grade year, so it doesn't all come due, they can keep accounts and start
But he-
fundraising earlier to make it more of a reality for a lot of our students.
What he said is that they actually proposed this last spring,
Yeah, yeah.
so.
And the middle school also, it's not only the eighth graders that are going, the middle school have already their plan for sixth graders, I think going to Boston, and seventh graders are going to New York City. So they have a plan already for all, so we'll talk to the high school. But again, the kids are excited at the middle school. I know that the high school was a lack of participation.
Well, and the lack of continued leadership in this building is part of the problem too, because things change from year to year, depending on who the principal is. And that's a difficult reality of Windham right now, so.
In their junior year, our students enjoyed the Germany
Germany,
exchange
yeah.
trip. Why can't we do something like that?
I think Spain is the one that wanted to go to Spain.
But even Spain, but it would have to be an exchange. Maybe that's why.
No, Spain is an exchange.
No, it's
Students just
not.
go there for Spain, right? It doesn't
But
have
that's
to be an exchange.
better, that's easier.
Yeah, you think so?
Okay,
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second,
all right.
all those in favor?
All in favor? All right.
We
we're-
technically don't
we
have
are-
a quorum right now anyways, so.
Yeah, we do.
No?
There's 5 of us here.